Michael Chitwood is the next poet reading today. Michael Chitwood is the author of 6 collections of poetry. Most recently, in the past couple of years, he's published Spill from Tupelo Press and From Whence, published by one of my favorite presses, LSU Press. He is a full-time visiting lecturer at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and his work was recently the subject of a conference at Emory and Henry College. And not to suggest that that the last note here is significant as the others, but he also has 2 new poems in Smartish Pace. Might be the highlight of his career, I'm not sure what. With that, here's Michael.
Of course, Stephen, absolutely. Thank you all for coming. It's always great to be back here in Charlottesville. Even though I hope at this very second, the University of North Carolina is winning their basketball game. I did get to see Tyler Hamburg break the record just before I came over here. I'm going to start with a new poem. And this is a poem that I came out of an assignment that I give my students, which is, I use George L. Lyon's poem, Where I'm From. And I make my students write a Where I'm From poem. And so I thought, well, what's good for the geese? So this is my Where I'm From poem, and it's called Where I'm Coming From. The room where the pale roots soaked in pie tins, where Jesus and John Kennedy hubbubbed, tobacco was hoed, suckered, primed, a pony was used to terrify 2 small girls. The room where whatnots crowded the corners and whatnots were reviewed every payday. He came home without some fingertips taken by the saws that were never seen. One stub was poked into the small of her back, and get what you're going to get and let's go was said every Christmas for 25 years after it was said the first time, and that stub pushed in the back like a gun barrel. The room where the TV snowed and one chest of drawers was all a little girl got out of an auction. Her parents dead with the influenza, siblings too, and she was uncle placed upon the chest of drawers, and no one would bid for it, her throne. And so it came to rest in the room off the room where a Bible was writ with the gospel of names, the gospel of here before us blood that knocked and hacked and stomped snow from boots and hung out sheets pinked with birth and kneaded and nodded knuckled ears in church where God banged hard in the upright, and men smoked unfiltered afterward by the stoop of the room itself. Lucky Strike struck, white sock propped after shotgun squirrels were parboiled and fried. The room whose timbers were 2x4s, and the wind wrinkled the aluminum hide. Around the room, incensed by the battered percolator, its top knob throbbed early with the tannic sap, and cooked all day, rendering its brew by evening something you could almost chew. That room ramped up with the unspoken, the aforementioned unmentioned, wrestlers grappling in the snow and only crowing. The room where warts were spoken to and made to vanish, and a spitty bag was recommended to be worn, and the assurance was made that the Lord could be counted on, to be counted on, for however what turned out, turned out. I'll read a few poems from Spill. And the first section of this book is in the 3rd person, but it's in the 3rd person voice of someone who could have grown up in that room that I just read about. The first one was a prose poem. It's called Flight. What he remembered now, years later, was that the running felt like the way slow motion looks. He had a head start, but the bull was gaining on him. He had gone to help feed the heifers. He went everywhere with his father, to the feed store and the welding shop. He thought the welding shop was what heaven would be like. Tongs and sparks and the clang of creation, and God in the heavy black mask and scarred smock. His father was yelling, running at the same time, trying to bend and rake handfuls of pebbles and dirt to throw. His father caught him under the arms and sailed him over the closed gate. There were pockets of cool air and dips and lifts and the sun flashing off mica chips and fool's gold beneath him. Then he was on the ground and his father beside him. It was the first time he could ever recall seeing his father lying on the ground. His father didn't say anything. but he pulled at the air in his breath. He sat up and swayed with heavy breathing. The bull trotted down the fence line, and they watched it. Then his father got up and spanked the dirt off his pants. Though his father didn't tell him not to tell, neither of them ever mentioned it to anyone. That way, the bull was always there, waiting. Same speaker had a dog. The dog had a problem. Dog. He prayed that his dog would live. He asked the Lord, the Almighty, Yahweh, I am that I am, to keep this dog alive, even though he had righteous gas and a broken tooth, even though soaking wet he smelled like old shoes soaked in urine, even though he was going to have to squat, trembling, and shit out the pair of pantyhose he had eaten. Still, he prayed for his life. He prayed out loud to the lawgiver, nation smasher, deliverer, kingdom maker, the old Pharaoh thrasher himself, and did not feel ridiculous. Out loud, please, let this dog live, he said, to the one who laid the foundations of the earth, who shut in the sea with doors when it burst forth from the womb. Please, let this bad, matted rug of a dog live. What else could he do with a dog possibly foundered on pantyhose? A dog whose sleeping head warmed his lap. What else but speak aloud to an empty room, to address walls and windows and the air beyond and the beyond beyond, the thunderhead troubleshooter they turn to when turning the prayer wheel. I'm going to try to hurry spring here. This is a wisteria poem. There's a wisteria blossom on the cover of the book. To be saved, you must be spent. The blast from the bee's wings is enough to knock the blossoms from the wisteria. Late spring and the sexual clouds of pollen are dissipating in the backyard. The bloom's purple confetti litters the yard, the parade gone by, and the dogwood is dropping pieces of a letter it shredded, white scraps with just a dab of ink staining each one. The words might have proclaimed love or been an official notice of death. All that can be said for sure is that the blue torque of the sky has tightened. And since wisteria spreads so devilishly, I think one wisteria poem deserves another one. If you've ever seen wisteria, it's really beautiful, particularly in the springtime when it blossoms out, but it's very much like kudzu in that it is almost unstoppable. Wisteria. Stewards of landscape, stringers of electric line, arborists and fence builders despise it. Python vine both crawl and choke its grim grip breathed by good wife's good father. He of clearing off open spaces, of trimming and clipping and keeping cut back the saggy clutch of this public nuisance. What good could come of this reach, this latching on and tightening, runners sliding like moccasins under leaf fall around the trunks of the steady workaday trees, who kept to themselves, went about their business of shade, of upstanding solid pillars, columns, nearly plumb, but this twist, this sinuous slither used their straight-lived fit itself to clean and climb and rope, to rise in wild loops, unruly, dancing, many-armed in this thriving, and in April, its purple clusters display tangles bouquet. A different sort of order comes this way. Hard not in this time to not to think of war. So I'm going to think of it for a little bit. This one is based on a farmer's technique of getting an orphaned sheep to be accepted by another mother. It's called how you know which one is yours. It's the logistics that trip you up. You should have bought large garbage bags to put the clothes in, though they aren't garbage, still with his smell in them, burlap and lemon. To trick a sheep whose lamb has died, farmers flay the dead one and put its fleece on a living one, so the mother will suckle it for her own. You put on his warm barn coat. There's a tissue in the left pocket. The president said today every effort is being made to keep the troops safe. All the other pockets are empty. As a kid, we choose strange things to make toys of. I had thousands of these little green plastic army men. And as with all kids, we discovered other uses for them. Children. We had an army of green plastic soldiers, the machine gunners prone with the bipod prop for the gun barrel, the bazooka men down on one knee shouldering the big gun, a little cannon really, the communication guys with their boxy radios. We imagined the squawk, the sizzling static of commands. There were grenade throwers, arms locked midway through a toss, and riflemen, the grunts, aiming along the green barrels at whatever enemy we dreamed of. Sometimes they were snipers positioned in the cliffs of the bookshelves. Sometimes they all marched and crouched across the linoleum plain exposed to the raking gunfire of the strafing stupas. We could be at war for hours, but when we grew bored, we'd select a few men, maybe one whose plastic rifle had gotten bent, or one the dog had dented, or the radio man whose antenna had snapped off. He was incommunicado now. And we'd take them outside after pocketing the grill matches. We set them on fire for the delicious fizz of the burning tears that wept off them, the oily black smoke that contained wispy dark filaments, a hellish spider casting web. We'd hide out in the flower garden, and when a honeybee, or better yet, one of those big bomber bumblebees came to a blossom, we'd napalm them. Sometimes the big bees would try a fiery sortie, Mayday, Mayday, a short, frenzied flight before crash landing into the grass for those pleasant summer hours, the children among the flowers. I can't imagine what it would be like to do this, although it is a very demanding position in the Army. Sniper. He looks them in the eyes. He does them that courtesy. Windows of the soul for those about to be only souls, though they don't know it. He squints at the ever after. His art is patience. After all, they've got all the time in the world for another split second. Distance is his disguise, though his finger selects as if he tapped them on the forehead. I'll take this one, he might say, of a melon in the market, choosing judiciously the one he will take home with him forever. Kind of a rainy day, or going to be a rainy day, and so this is a poem about an umbrella. It's called Here I Am, Lord. The ribbed black of the umbrella is an argument for the existence of God. This little shelter we carry with us and may forget beside a chair in a committee meeting we didn't especially want to attend. What a beautiful word, umbrella, a shade to be opened, like a bat's wing scalloped. It shivers, a drumhead beaten by the silver sticks of rain, and I do not have mine, and so the rain showers me. I'll do two more. It's a garden poem. I love to watch hummingbirds, so I put out feeders. They're really actually very vicious little birds. really go after each other. The garden. I put out the sugar water feeder so I can watch the hummingbirds dogfight. I remember the birds from my grandmother's garden, how they would pause midair in front of a blossom and hang like a Christmas ornament, a glittering, ruby-throated decoration. She had flowers taller than me and paths among them. It was a perfumed maze I wandered lost in its delights. Butterflies jinking from blossom to blossom, the hum of the fuzzball bumblebees. She would have been in her late 40s by then, so he'd already been messing around. When a bird had its fill, it would back away from the bloom, wings blurred with speed. My feeder hangs from a wrought iron hook, a dish with a red top that has a perch around 6 sipping holes. The birds land and draw the sickly sweet water into the needles of their beaks. And they are fierce with each other. An incoming bird dives at a perched bird and they buzz into battle, darting into the butterfly bushes, angling and strafing, circling and chasing. They get after it full throttle, as I never saw them do in that garden, though now I'm sure they did. And I'll end with this one. I hope you'll forgive me. I put it last because I have to run out the door after I finish reading it. The university down the road from the University of North Carolina in Durham, at Pompous University, has a very foul-mouthed basketball coach. But the coach at North Carolina, Roy Williams, is a gentleman, and he's not foul-mouthed, so he substitutes a word sometimes when he's wanting to be foul-mouthed. And that gave me the idea for this point. It's called the watching of the mouth, and it comes from the phrase, watch your mouth. The watching of the mouth. I know this guy at the office who says fricking when he means fucking. To be polite, I guess, so he doesn't offend anyone. He uses it as an intensifier, a verbal equivalent to the way fucking can intensify a relationship. But here's the thing. We all know it means fucking. You can even hear it that way, sort of. And how does it intensify the word after it anyway? When he says this budget process is so freaking messed up, what does the echo of fucking add to the messed upness of the budget process? Actually, it's not an echo. It's a stand-in, a mannequin that we all know as the real man, completely anatomically correct and capable of performing the aforementioned act, which is most often mentioned in the negative, as in, you're so fucking stupid. But why is that I may be so fucking stupid as to ask? We say, you suck, or the bumper sticker says mean people suck, but who doesn't want to be, sucked? Or its equivalent, licked. And so someone who does that would be at least a friend or a welcome acquaintance. Meanwhile, the polite guy in his loosen tie and budget process crisis is intensifying our daily existence with the constant reminder of the other process, the one by which we were brought into daily existence, and also by which we cement relationships or complicate them intensely, with what we are saying that we are not saying by saying it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I really wish you hadn't mentioned the basketball tournament because, we agreed to do this reading, some months ago, and I probably shouldn't mention this here, but I went to Maryland, and I'm a big Terps fan, but you beat us a few weeks ago, so that probably makes up for something there. But so we snuck into the tournament. I'm thinking, there's no way they're going to play when the poetry is going on. And what's happening right now, they're probably down 10 to California. But yeah, go Terps.